Okay, good morning everyone, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thursday morning. Today's class has been sponsored anonymously for the Refuah Shlema of all of Am Yisrael. Rabotai, today's class is going to be based on one pasuk. If you want to follow us along, it's going to be on pasuk chapter 10, pasuk 12, Perek Yod, pasuk Yod Bet. And this pasuk really gives us a big, very important hashkafa, philosophy, as far as how much of life is in our hands and how much of our lives is in God's hands. We always wonder, we always ask, what's up to me? What's up to Hashem? Is my life predestined? Is it predetermined what I'm going to do? Or, things about my life. How much of my life is predetermined? Did God decide how long I'm going to live? Did God decide what I'm going to do? Or, all of these questions we wonder. And the answer actually is in our parasha. Chapter 10, pasuk 12. Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Jewish people, it's a very simple, straightforward pasuk. Ve'ata Yisrael, and now, O Israel, ma Hashem Elokecha shoel me'emach. What does God ask of you after all? Ki im le'yir'a et Hashem Elokecha. All Hashem asks of you is to fear Him, to go in His ways, to love Him, to serve Him. And our rabbis from here coined the phrase, Hakol bidei shamayim. Everything is in God's hands. God isn't asking you for anything except, not for your money, not how healthy we're good. Everything is in God's hands except for, what does God ask of us? Ki im le'yir'a et Hashem Elokecha. The only thing that Hashem could ask of us is that we should fear Him. And our rabbis say, therefore, Hakol bidei shamayim chutz miyirat shamayim. That means everything is in the hands of heaven except for the fear of heaven. Sorry, I just realized that this was not near me. I'm not sure if you heard that. But our rabbis say, Hakol bidei shamayim chutz miyirat shamayim. Everything is in the hands of heaven except for the fear of heaven. That means it is never predestined that somebody should be good or bad. Right? This is what we call free will. Free will, things that are in our control, not in Hashem's. Of course, Yirat Shamayim is an umbrella term. It refers to everything. Excuse me. It refers to everything that has to do with right and wrong. Okay? So, when it says that Esav came out and he was kicking to go into do avodah zarah, what does that mean? How could Esav be kicking to do avodah zarah when he was a fetus? It sounds like he didn't have free will. Sounds like he was predestined from day one to be a bad guy. True or false? False. Esav was never predestined to be a bad guy. Esav could have been a great guy. Matter of fact, Esav should have been one of the avot. We were supposed to have 4 avot: Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Esav, corresponding to the 4 imahot: Sarah, Rivka, Rahel, and Leah. Esav was supposed to marry Leah. They were supposed to be part of the equation. Now Esav messed up. Free will. No one forced him to mess up. Esav could have been great and he should have been great, but he didn't. He ended up messing it up. And what happened was, because of that, Yaakov ended up having to marry both Rachel and Leah. He took Esav's spot, so to speak, in the entire family history of the Jewish people. So what does it mean that Esav was kicking on his way out? Esav was trying to go to Avodah Zarah. Well, it can mean that Esav had a netiyah. Esav had a drive. He had a stronger urge to do certain things. That's very likely. But ultimately, it was in his free choice whether or not he wanted to act on it or to follow those drives. So a lot of times we see people today that they have certain, I don't know what you want to call them, passions or drives, and they say, well, I can't control it. This is how I was created. Now that may be how they were created. Maybe they were created with a certain passion. But we still are in control of whether or not we act out on them, whether or not we follow them or we control ourselves. Right? Now, free will is actually very important that we accept. It's not just like, okay, it's a nice thing. It has to be that there is free will. Right? Besides the fact that it's pasuk. Ma Hashem shoel meimach. Moshe says black and white to the Jewish people, listen, this is something that God is asking you to do. Hashem cannot fear him for you. Something that we have to do. He cannot do it for us. Hashem decrees a person's life. Hashem decrees a person's smart or dumb. If a person is going to be wealthy or not. If a person is going to be good looking or not. If a person is going to be strong or not. That is up to Hashem. But, Ma Hashem shoel mech, what does God ask from us? He literally, physically, God cannot make our choices for us, or else they're not our choices, or else they're His choices. Okay, now, it's also clear that we have free will from the fact that the Torah punishes and rewards. Schar ve'onesh, reward and punishment. There can be no reward or punishment if my choices were not mine. If I was forced to be a bad person, that's how Hashem created me, why am I getting punished if I do bad things? This is something that's unfortunately used a lot today when they are trying to exonerate certain people from things that they did. They say, no, it's not them, they're not responsible, there was already, it's in their genes, it's in their makeup, they're forced to do certain things. But then you basically remove any accountability and responsibility from people and their actions. And it's not true. At least the Torah thinks it's not true. According to Hashem, we are responsible for our choices. If we kill, we are guilty. And there's no one to blame on that. If we steal, that's our fault. If we are dishonest. It's so funny that sometimes in life, we put our energy into the wrong area. You see, when it comes to things that have to do with right and wrong, that's our domain. That's things that are in our control. But sometimes we make a big mistake and we say, oh, it's just who I am. It's mazal. It's just, part of my code. This is who I am. This is how I was created. And we don't work on ourselves as much as we should in the areas that are technically the areas that we should be putting all of our energy. And everything else, that's Hashem's domain. Right? The things that have to do with God, as an example. The parnasah, and our health, and our strength, and our smarts. That's Hashem. And sometimes, unfortunately, we put energy there more than we should, even though really that's God's domain. So it's all backwards. Right? The avenue that has to do between, the mitzvot that are up to us to do, that's what we should put all our energy. That's what we should be focusing our attention, working on ourselves. But unfortunately, many times the Yetzer Hara comes in and he says, and he convinces us to say, this is who you are, this is what it is, don't try to do anything about it. And we give in and we say, okay, this is who I am. And we resign. And when it comes to everything else, we don't resign. When it comes to the things that are not in our hands technically, that are in Hashem's hands, that's where we say, oh, I got to do the best that I can. Okay. So we have it all backwards. We do the maximum on the things that are in God's control, and we do nothing about the things that are actually in our control. The story is told of Rav Hirsch Leib of Volozhin. He once asked his students, he said, so, how are you doing? He said, Baruch Hashem, healthy, parnasah is good. Okay, the rabbi said, okay, and Baruch Hashem, and how are you doing? So he said, that's it. Thank God, family is okay, and family is growing. And Rav Hirsch Leib asked the third time, and how are you doing? And the kid says, Rabbi, I don't understand. You ask me how I'm doing, I tell you how I'm doing. You ask me again how I'm doing, I tell you again how I'm doing. Well, I don't understand. What are you trying to ask me, Rabbi? And Rav Hirsch Leib has told him, when I ask you how you're doing, you explain to me that money and health is good, but that's not how you're doing. That's in Hashem's hands. That's how Hashem is doing. If I ask you how God's doing, then you should answer, God's doing great. He gave me money. He gave me health. He gave me family. That's in God's hands. I didn't ask how God is doing. I asked, how are you doing? The things that are in your control. Your job. The mitzvot. The fear of heaven. The love of Hashem. Honesty. Right and wrong. How are you doing? And sometimes we confuse the two. We think that we are our parnasah. We are, and that's how we rate our success, by the way. You could speak to somebody they come home, they look so sour, so sad. What's going on? Is everything okay? He said, it's such a bad day today. Really such a bad day? What happened? Why do you have such a bad day? Say, I didn't make money today. I didn't make as much as I wanted to. I got a little bit sick. I caught a cold. I got hurt. I fell. That's not a bad day for you. That's God's bad day. That's Hashem's fault. Let Him deal with that. Parnasah is up to Him. Of course, we have to always be responsible. We have to do our due diligence. We have to do our hishtadlut. And we cannot smoke and go outside without masks and expect not to catch COVID and then blame it on Hashem if we do. I'm not saying no, 100% we have to be responsible. But if we are, that's it. I do what I have to. And now it's God's problem. Hashem, let's go. Where's the parnasah? That's you. What we should use as a measuring rod for success is not our parnasah or our health, but it's were we honest today in trying to attain a parnasah. If a person does something that's very shrewd and very sneaky and backstabbing and comes home with a lot of money today, they should not feel like a success. That's not a successful day. Because the only thing that was up to you was how moral and how honest you're going to be. And if we weren't, we failed. We should feel like a failure at the end of the day. And it's an amazing way of looking at life. Because again, so many of the things that we get stressed about, so many things that we get anxious about, so many of the things that we get nervous about. You speak to people, so many of the problems that we have in our lives, and we're so frustrated over, are the things that we shouldn't be. They're the things that are not in our control. Leave that up to God. Don't get stressed over it. Nothing that we could do about it anyways. The only things that we should get stressed about are the things that we are failing at. The things that are in our control. Hakol bidei shamayim. Everything is in God's hands except for yirat shamayim, the fear of heaven. At the end of the day, I come home. I prayed today. I was honest in business. I learned. I said berachot. I kept kosher. That's a successful day. That's a great day. I did everything that I can. What was it? Whatever was up to me, I did. You know, if you're on a football team, and your job is to be the kicker, and every time they put you in, you kick a field goal, and you're 5 for 5. You had a successful day. Now your team only has 15 points, and they lost 21-15. But that's not your fault. There was nothing that you can do. You don't play offense. You don't play defense. You're a kicker. You have one job to kick the ball. And every time they put you in, you kicked it right in. You're an amazing kicker and you're a successful person. Hashem will figure out the rest of the team. It's up to Him. Let Him deal with it. I have enough problems on my plate. I don't need to get stressed about God's domain. So it's very important that we remember these things. That what's up to me are the things that I should focus on. When you ask someone today, how are you doing? How is life going? And again, we make the mistake and we answer right away with how Hashem's life is going. Thank God, I'm healthy. I have parnasah. I have children. That's Hashem. That's not us. How am I doing? I don't know. Am I following the Torah? Am I doing chesed? Am I doing mitzvot? Am I concerned about the people around me? If yes, then I'm doing great. That I'm a successful person. And if yes, then I'm a successful person no matter what else is going on the other side of the coin. That's God's problem. Let him deal with that. That's his to-dos. In my hands, in my control, what I have to do, I'm doing the best that I can. Hakol bidei shamayim. Everything is in God's hands except for yirat shamayim. And that's the only thing that we should really focus on. Most of our attention of our day should go into matters of yirat shamayim. Again, yirat shamayim is an umbrella term. Not only fear of heaven, it includes any decision of right and wrong. Any decision. That is up to us. And we should do whatever we can to make sure that we're making the right choices. Studying the right types of books. Learning. Growing. Right? We don't always get to choose the things that happen to us, but we get to choose how we respond. We get angry or not. That's all part of us. And because of that, because we have free will, we will get rewarded or punished, depending on what choices we made. Animals, you should know, don't have free will. Angels, you should know, don't have free will. The only creature in the entire universe that has free will, not angels, not animals, it's only man. And that's why man is born with a tremendous potential. Adam are the letters me'od. Me'od means very. Very what? It's up to you. Up to you, up to us, what we will be. Very amazing or very disaster. We can choose. We're the only ones that have that ability to use our free will. That's why animals, they don't have olam haba. I think I shared with you one time, one of my students, she emailed me, true story, I kid you not. And she said, Rabbi, my dog passed away. Can I say Kaddish for him? Can I have someone say Kaddish for him? It was a real question. They really wanted to say Kaddish for that. Now, what's the answer, by the way? The answer is that you cannot say Kaddish because there's nothing to say Kaddish for. The reason we say Kaddish is to elevate the soul of the person so that when they're in the next world, they can go higher and higher and higher. A dog does not go to the next world. A dog doesn't have olam haba. Okay? Now, she misunderstood. She got very excited. She said, oh, what do you mean? They don't have emotions. They don't have feelings. Yes, they do. I said, no, time out. They have a lot of feelings, 100%. They have emotions. Man's best friend, 100. They have. I'm not going to say no. But they don't have free will. They don't have reward and punishment. An animal is pre-programmed to do whatever it's going to do. Any growth that it does, any change that it goes through is not by choice. It's by force. Even when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, that's pre-programmed. It's not something that it willingly wants to do or chooses to do. It has to do it. An animal can never become compassionate. A mouse will always, a cat will always want to kill a mouse, period. You know, the Rambam actually debated this matter with philosophers of his time. And they claimed that you can train animals and they can become good-natured just like people. And people have free will and we're born thieves and murderers and we become good. Animals can become good. And the story is told that in the time of the Rambam, it's probably a story that we've said before. And the story is attributed to different times, different rabbis, but we'll use the version of the Rambam Maimonides. They went to the king and they debated this matter in front of the king, and the king decided, okay, in 30 days, we're going to give the philosophers a chance to prove their point, their view, that animals, like people, have free will. Well, 30 days later, the day arrives, and for 30 days, the Rambam completely forgot about the point, he forgot about the matter, and a little mouse ran into one of his, I don't know if it was like a snuff or a tobacco purse or something, but a little mouse ran in and it got locked in. And as the Rambam was in his study, the door knocks, and he opens it up and he sees it's the advisors from the king's palace. The messengers came to tell Rambam, Rabbi, the king is ready for you. And the Rambam, oh my gosh, today's the 30th day, today's the due date, oh my gosh. He quickly gets his things, he goes out to the king's palace, and as he's sitting there, these philosophers trying to prove their point, they snap their fingers, and all of a sudden all of these cats dressed in tuxedos, holding these trays with food, start walking out on two legs all the way, placing all of the food and the trays on the tables and bowing as they leave. And they put on a show and a performance. And the king is so impressed. He's happy to see that the philosophers were right, that even animals can be taught, and they can, they can use free will to change and grow. And every snap, cats keep coming out and doing amazing things and very polite. And the Rambam smiles. He realizes that Hashem gave him a gift just a couple of hours ago. He digs into his pocket. He opens up his little purse, and out runs this mouse. And the mouse starts running through the dance floor. And as the cats see the mouse, they drop everything and they start chasing the mouse for dear life, for lunch. And the point of the Rambam was very clear and proven, that animals do not have free will. An animal is always an animal. They're going to always steal. They're going to always want to kill. It's in their nature, and they can never outgrow that. People do. Man has free will. And by the way, it's not limited to Jews. Even Goyim have free will. And Goyim, if they use their free will the right way, they earn, next world, they earn the reward or the punishment, like us, like Jews. They're the same. And this is actually found in a text that we say every time we learn Mishnayot. Kol Yisrael yesh lahem helek la'olam haba. All of Israel has a portion in the world to come. What does that mean, all of Israel? Kol Yisrael. Kol Yisrael means every, including the non-Jews. The word kol is adding. Not only the Jews have free will, but even the non-Jews have free will. And therefore it's something that we should remind ourselves, and we should constantly, and again, such an important idea. First of all, how we conduct ourselves. Right? We're faced with a predicament. We're faced with a situation. And it's very easy to just say, okay, this is me. And we'll start maybe singing the song, This Is Me. Or we'll just give up and resign and say, this is who I am, and I don't know, this is how Hashem made me. Or sometimes we'll blame our parents. This is how my parents raised me. This is what they taught me. Rabbi Twersky has a great line. He would always tell addicts that come in, he would say to them, even if this is how your parents made you, if you choose to stay that way, that is your fault. Brilliant. Hakol bidei shamayim, everything is in the hands of heaven except for the fear of heaven. Right and wrong are up to us. Now, there are very shady areas under this umbrella of right and wrong. So I'll tell you about a controversial topic right now. Okay? Is there such a thing as someone that I'm supposed to marry? That Hashem decreed that I'm going to marry? Did Hashem decree on me my soulmate? So many of us, we've studied Gemara, we've learned different Chazals and Midrashim, and everyone has a soulmate. Maimonides, the Rambam, says that's impossible. You ready for this? The Rambam says it can't be. Because getting married has to do with free will. Whether or not, A, you will get married. B, will you get married to a Jew or a non-Jew? C, will you get married to someone who is a male or female? D, will you get married to someone that you're permitted to marry? There are so many areas of marriage that are forbidden, that are averot. Marriage is a question of right and wrong, good or bad. So it can't be that God decreed that I'm going to marry someone, or else God took away free will from me. God will never do that. Therefore, the Rambam, taking this to all the way to the extreme on the Shidduchim spectrum, Rambam says that it's not decided. That's up to us. It's up to us whether or not. Now maybe there is a way of combining the two opinions, but in general, again, the point is very clear. It's so important for us to work on the areas and the fields that we are able to, that we are responsible for. If you are defense, worry about defense. And if you're offense, worry about offense. It would be very silly for somebody who's on defense to go over and to start working on offensive plays. And in the meantime, he's giving up touchdowns. In the meantime, he's not tackling the running back. In the meantime, he's not sacking the QB. Do your job. What's our job? Our job is right and wrong. Do we keep the mitzvot? Are we doing the right amount of chesed? Torah learning, prayer, kosher, Shabbat, berachot. Okay? Now, Rabbi Dessler does address something called, and this is a very delicate point, Rabbi Dessler discusses something called the nekudat bechira. What's the nekudat bechira? He calls it the point of free will. And he explains as follows. He says, we don't all have the same free will. I'll give you a very simple mashal. Somebody who was born in the middle of some, Midwest state in the US, he's born a Jew, technically, but he doesn't know Shabbat, doesn't know Tzeniut, doesn't know kosher. He doesn't know. Unfortunately, that's where he is. That's where he is raised. That's where he was born. For him, on this very low level, he doesn't have free will on everything. It's a matter of fact that he's going to eat not kosher. That's not his test. Hashem's not going to punish him for eating not kosher, because that's where he's at. That's already too above him, Rabbi Dessler explains. It's too high for him. He can't reach it. His free will is maybe will he keep Yom Kippur. That's his test. And depending on how he answers to that test is what's going to determine whether or not he gets rewarded. You have a person that's born in Bnei Brak. They don't even have a not kosher restaurant even if they wanted to. So such a kid born in Bnei Brak who keeps kosher, whip-de-doo, hazaku baruch. Guess what? You don't really get rewarded for keeping kosher if you're born into it. It's not your test. It's too easy for you. It's like me passing a first grade test. Right? I sit with my son to read. Now he's going into first grade. My other son's going into third. If my other son comes and he starts reading it, I'm not going to give him a sticker because this is not your homework. You have harder homework. You have your own homework. This is his homework. And if he passes his homework, he will get the same size and amount of stickers as if my third grade son passes his homework. Meaning in life, it's all relative. This is what he calls the nekudat bechirat, the point of free will. If this is wherever we are, we each have a different level that we're born at. That whether it's through nature or nurture, through different factors, but we were all brought up and we were put in a certain level out on life. Now that level is always changing, by the way. The level that we're on today is not the same level that we're going to be on tomorrow. Our level is always moving, hopefully up. You see, the first time you keep Shabbat, it may be very hard. And that's your test. And there's going to be so much sachar waiting for such a person. So much reward. But the next day, the next Shabbat, it's going to be a little bit easier. Until it's so easy that the person climbs, and all the way up here, that Shabbat is no longer a issue or challenge for them. Did any of you ever think of killing? Don't answer that question. Okay, fine. I'm going to assume the answer is no. Right? Or sometimes yes, right? The guy hits us in the car, someone bumps us, someone cuts us off. I'm going to kill that guy, right? But for real, none of us ever thought of going out and buying a gun and killing someone, right? Or most of us. Most people don't, at least here, don't struggle with murder. Right? But I guarantee you, there is somebody out there who does. There's somebody out there who struggles with murder. And by the way, we look at that person like, what's the matter with you? Are you out of your mind? You're gonna kill someone? Are you crazy? But guess what? We don't, because that's not our test. There are things that we probably do that people that are above us look down and laugh at us and say, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? You're violating that? That, for them, it's not a test, and for us it is. Maybe some of us are tempted to cheat on our taxes. We're failing in that area. Someone above us who is so honest could very easily look down and say, oh, look, you're such a cheater. What's the matter with you? The same way we look down at someone that's a murderer. The point is that everybody, again, has a different level. And we dare not judge someone else for their level. The only person that we should be looking at is ourselves. The level that we're on. There's an amazing story in the Gemara. I want to say it's with, I don't know if it's Rav Abaye, one of the rabbis in the Gemara. You ready for the story? He once said the following. He was teaching the Talmidim, he was teaching the students, and he said, kids, tomorrow we're going to study about our friend Menashe. Now Menashe, if you're not familiar, was one of the worst kings in Jewish history. Menashe was somebody that sinned and caused all of the Jewish people to sin. He put Avodah Zarah, very bad king. So as a joke, the rabbi said, all right guys, tomorrow we got our friend Menashe in the house, we're going to learn about him. Menashe comes that night in a dream, and he says to the rabbi, he says, oh, I didn't know we were friends. Since when are you and I friends? You think we're equals? So the rabbi laughs in his dream and he says, I mean, with all due respect, but you were one of the biggest sinners ever. You did Avodah Zarah, so I don't think you should be on your high horse looking down at me. So Menashe says to the rabbi, okay, if you're so smart, let me ask you a halakha question. From where does one cut bread when they do hamotzi? When you do hamotzi, where should you cut the slice from? Where should you take the piece of bread and eat from? So the rabbi actually didn't know the answer. He's like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. And the rabbi said, okay, I'll tell you. You're supposed to cut from the most well-done piece. Not burnt, but the most well-done piece. That's why a lot of times you may see people in a pizza store, when they say hamotzi on a slice, they'll actually bite from the crust, following this idea that you're supposed to bite from the most well-done piece. So this rabbi was amazed that there was a halakha that this horrible king knew that he didn't. So he says to the king, he says, well, forgive me, but if you're so knowledgeable, how come you did so much Avodah Zarah? And the king said back, you should know that if you were around in my day, you would run just as fast as me, if not faster, to go do Avodah Zarah. You see, it's very easy for us in life to judge other people. To look at them and say, oh, you're such a bad person. Oh, you're really such a sinner. You're so immoral. But you know what? That's their test. And good luck to them with their test. And, they're failing. But we cannot judge them and their level to us on our level. Right? We have no idea how hard something could be for somebody else. And this gives us also a lot of compassion when we realize that, first of all, it gives us compassion when we realize that, you know what, I don't know where they are, I don't know what level they're on, I shouldn't look down at people. And by the way, it also helps us feel good about ourselves. Sometimes, I speak to people and they say, Rabbi, I'm so far, I'm doing so little, there's so much more that people are doing more than me. And maybe it's true, and we should always grow. But so what? So what if other people are doing more than us? That's not what matters. God's not going to judge us compared to them. Hashem is going to judge us compared to ourselves. What's my level? And am I doing the best that I can on my level? And again, the guy in the middle of US somewhere who's breaking Shabbat and he's keeping Yom Kippur, if that's his test, he is going straight to Gan Eden, sitting right next to Moshe Rabbeinu. Because that's it, he's doing the best that he can. It's about being the best that we can, not being the best that he can. It's the best that I can do on my level. And that's, again, so many important points that come out of this. First of all, when we realize that, right, everything is in the hands of heaven except for the fear of heaven. So we realize that there are certain things that are in God's control. We shouldn't get stressed over those things. And we should come back, if we did the best that we can, we should have a happy day. We had a successful day. We should also realize that I should focus on what's up to me. And like the story of Rav Hirsch Leib of Volozhin, not how God's doing. How are you doing? How are we doing? Those are the questions that we should ask ourselves. When we understand free will, we don't judge other people. We realize that maybe they're born on a different level than we are. When we understand free will, we also appreciate ourselves and we appreciate the level that we're on, understanding that, you know what, if I'm trying my best, I should be very proud of myself. Of course, we should always strive for more. We should never get content. We should always have that struggle. We should always push and push and push. But I'm doing the best that I can. That's a success. That's what a successful day looks like. So I think it's a lot to chew on, a lot to think about. Appreciating that we are the only creature that has free will, by the way. No animal, no angel. We are the only ones. We should be zocheh to turn our Adam into a me'od, into a very, but a very in the up direction. Okay, we'll stop over here. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.